Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and my special guest is Mr. Jerry Brock. Very thankful that you came on with me today, and we're going to make plenty of time to talk about everything. Well, why don't you go ahead and give us a little introduction, Jerry?
All right, thank you, Stephen, for having me today. I'm Jerry Brock. I was born and raised in Dyer County. I'm 61 years old. Been married to my wife. It'll be 37 years. This is coming May the 5th. We got one daughter, Katie May. Her husband's Blake May. We got one grandson, Brock Thomas May. We got one granddaughter, Bo May, and we're members of Findlay Baptist Church. I got saved in 1998, served the Lord, and it's been a great thing to happen in my life, other than having my family. And I'm thankful that I raised my grandson and my daughter in the Lord's house, so they know right from wrong, and a lot of people don't. My grandson, the other day we had a little discussion about Jesus when it was storming.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was scared, and I said, "That's the Lord, son." I said, "The thunder's his voice talking to us."
Yeah.
And a scolding us, you know. But anyway, yeah, I lived in Dyer County. I worked my whole life since I was a kid. My daddy farmed, and you know we had to go down on the farm. I remember my job back in the day. We didn't have the big seed trailers. We had the bags of beans. The beans weighed more than I did.
Yeah.
I was called the seed queen, you know. I had to back the truck up across the field as the planter ran out where Daddy wouldn't have to walk over, you know. And
Seed queen.
Yeah, and you know, and I was the gopher when they had to work on something, go get this and that, wrenches, and I'm sure your papa would relate to that real well back in the day, you know. But it was good times back in the days. It was hard work.
Yeah.
But it made us who we are today by working.
Yeah.
And my dad, like I say, he farmed. And my neighbor had the candy company over there. And I'd go over there and I would stock candy shelves in that warehouse. I started when I was probably 6 years old. And I learned to rotate the dates.
Yeah.
Because they'd always say, rotate those dates if you're going to put it up. So I started out young working, and I've worked... when I went to school, I went all the way through Findlay School to the 8th grade. Then I went to Dyersburg High School, and Mr. Leon Harbor told me, he said, "Son, you get an education, I'll give you a job." So my first real job was a candy man.
Yeah.
I done that, worked from them from 83, 88, I bought the candy company. Sold out in 92, we'll get into that a little later, how that went about. Then I went to work for Wonder Bread, worked there 21 years. They went out of business.
Yeah.
And then I left there, went to DSCUD, worked there from 2015 to 2020 or 21, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And now I'm at the Dyer County Highway Department.
Okay. Well, that's quite a journey. So when you were helping farm, that would have been back in the 70s then, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, farming's changed a lot since the 70s.
Oh man, I think Daddy had bought a Massey Ferguson planter. Was a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And you know we cultivated back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when wild cotton came into the country. You know, you couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
We'd have to go pull wild cotton all morning, and if it had seed, we'd have to bring it out to the end of the road.
Yeah.
And then we'd cultivate in the afternoons. You know.
Wow.
It was all open top tractors.
Yeah,
you know,
big time farming.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that would have been a time to be involved in it. So, your dad, Mr. Bud,
That's
Mr.
right.
Bud Brock. For those that don't know, I actually met Mr. Bud and Miss Ollie way back. Would have been 2012, 2013, something like that. Mr. Bud had some health challenges, and my papa used to drag me across the country to sing for folks.
Yeah.
And my papa, Joe Smith, he would request prayer for folks that were sick in church, and anytime that he'd be requesting prayer for somebody, I'd be like, we're probably gonna go see him next.
Yeah.
And, you know, I play guitar. I play a bunch of instruments, but at the time I was only playing guitar, and I'm not, I don't think I'm no great musician or nothing like that, especially back then, just getting started. And he would take me in folks' houses I didn't know, but he knew them very well. You
That's
know,
right.
he'd been knowing Mr. Bud all his life.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, we'd hear him tell stories about farming back then and sing gospel songs. They always really enjoyed it. You know, just great people. Your mother and father, great people.
Thank you. And they really appreciated you coming by. And the shut-ins that we have today,
Yeah.
that's what they look forward to.
Oh yeah.
You know, we at our church, we have a James ministry, we call it. We fix meals on Sundays and carry to the shut-ins or people having health issues or whatever. And it's not the meal,
Yeah.
it's the company.
That's right.
You know, it makes a big difference in those people's lives. And I'm thankful for that. The young people at our church started that.
That's
And
fantastic.
it's been a great ministry. It
Yeah.
sure has.
Yeah, but no, that's when we met him. And so, was he farming like for himself, or you know, was he
Yeah,
renting?
back in the day, he rented Tiger Tail Farms. Mr. James Osmond, they called him Buck Osmond, Little Buck. He owned all the Tiger Tail Farms. I think it was about 2,000 acres there where Medlin Farm is now.
Yeah.
And it was Sam Brown was my uncle, Bill Brock was my daddy's brother, and
I know Sam Brown was your uncle.
Yeah,
No
he
kidding.
had married my daddy's sister.
There you go.
John Brown's.
Yeah, I got to give Mr. Sam a shout out because that dude, I love Reese's peanut butter cups to this day. When I was a little kid, I used to hang out at the Junction store when my, Mama and Papa owned
That's
it
right,
there.
that's
That would have
right.
been the late '90s. I would have been like 3 or 4 years old, and I mean, just barely remember it. But my grandmother tells a story about how one day I wanted some Reese's. I'd never had any before,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, we ain't getting it." So Sam bought some for me, bought that and a Coke and gave it to me,
Yeah.
and so that was my first Reese's I ever had. And he
That's
started a lifelong addiction because I love some
Yeah.
Reese's.
Well, when I was in the candy business, I sold to Mr. Joe, Miss
Yeah.
Ann down there at the store.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and I didn't eat candy much when I ran the candy route, but once I sold out, I got a little craving for candy. Like the same way with Wonder Bread. I never ate Hostess cakes a whole lot, and then after they were gone,
Really?
I have a little craving for that now.
Dang, man, see, that's why I couldn't be a candy man
Yeah.
or bread.
Yeah.
Anybody selling, Hostess stuff either, because dang, I'd be trying to taste test
Yeah,
along the way.
well, that's how I got started eating orange cupcake or a snowball. Never tried them in my life. And, you're going down the road and you got all that stuff in the truck. You
Yeah.
go, well, got one damage here or one you picked up for returns. I thought, well, I can try this out.
Yeah.
And that caused an addiction on some of those.
So tell me more about Mr. Bud. How long did he farm for? I'm just curious. You said I'm guessing you helped him off and on till you started in the candy business in
Yeah.
'83.
There was 5 of us boys.
Yeah, that's right.
And Ricky and Randy, they were the oldest two, and they'd help him put in the crop. Back in the day, he had Mr. Frank McCorkle work for him for years till we got old enough.
Okay.
And he had built-in farm hands,
Oh yeah.
So as we got older, Daddy probably started in the 60s
Yeah.
farming. He went up north, tried to factory work, and that wasn't for a country boy. He came
Yeah.
back home, and he helped clear a lot of the bottoms.
Okay.
Down Miss Kelly Lou, our Uncle Tom, where the big brick house is.
Yeah.
That's my daddy's home place.
Okay.
They were all raised there, and their daddy was in, I think, the sawmill business, and so they helped clear a lot of bottoms down there. And Daddy farmed. We farmed up until around 80. Well, I graduated '83, so he was still farming
Yeah.
in '83.
Was that about when the interest rates went up so high?
1980,
Yeah.
1980 when things got hard. That's the year they had our whole crop planted, in which that year we had farmed the Walker farm.
Yeah.
And we went over there, Rick and Randy and Daddy, they had our crop planted before we got out of school. Bill, Chuck and I, we got out of school. We thought, man, we're going to cultivate one time. It's going to be the easiest summer we ever had.
Yeah.
Backwater came in, wiped everything out.
Dang it.
And when that backwater wiped it out, by the time it got off, it was late June. Got everything planted, never another drop came in.
Yeah.
The little soybean wasn't much taller than a Coca-Cola bottle.
Jesus.
We cultivated every day, cracks in the ground so wide if you dropped a wrench working on a cultivator, you might not
No.
get it back.
Dang
And we asked Daddy, we said, Daddy, why we plowing? He said, you pulling up the moisture, boy. Yeah. But, and Daddy never fished with a fishing pole until that year. He always run trammel nets and
Yeah.
fish boxes and things like that. And he and Rick and Randy and Bill had went over to Bruce. We bought a little farm over there off Palmer Road. And they went over there working and left me and Chuck down there cultivating.
Mm.
And that Walker farm had that riverbed on it. Boy, the backwater just got out of it. It was good and smooth. We came home for dinner up at the junction. We went home and got a boat.
Yeah.
Mr. Roy Fowler had a bake shop across the
No
road.
kidding.
There. And we got that boat, and we got in there about 3 o'clock. We took off.
No kidding.
Got in that boat, and all we had was a sculling paddle and 2 old cane poles, minnow bucket. Well, Daddy came looking for us, but he didn't come all the way down blowing the horn. We got home that afternoon. He said, "What you lads been doing?" We said, we went fishing. He said, "Well, you better done good."
Mm.
So we ate supper and went outside and we had those crappie.
Yeah.
And we left the boat down there. But the next day, we got us some minnows at lunchtime when we came out for lunch, and we put our minnows over in the shade. We was gonna go fishing.
Yeah.
When we came around the corner, the boat was gone. Daddy's truck was sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
And he learned how to fish for crappie. And it was an addiction from then on.
Well, right on, man. That's if everything in the world ain't going right, you know.
That's right.
If the backwater got you crops,
Yeah.
and you might as well, you know.
I will get something to eat.
Yeah.
And Mama, she used to love to catfish. You know, she would come down here. Mr. Milt McGee gave her permission to come down here and fish on his place. Her and Miss Peggy
Yeah.
Davis would fish, you know, with those rod and reels and down on the Forkadale River. But you know, that was the good days.
Yeah.
That was a good day.
That's something else, man. That's
You know, life has changed a lot in this county.
yes, sir.
Back in the day, when I was in the candy business, you could go every 2 or 3 miles and get a bologna sandwich. Because we had stores everywhere. This county, we didn't have to go out of town to buy anything. We had it all right here in this county, and that's the thing we got to do. We got to change this county so we can buy everything we need in this county. We need some retail back
Yeah.
in here. The wholesale companies, I can deal with that a little bit because I was around the wholesale company my whole life, and man, we had supermarkets. I mean, they had the meat markets and all. People didn't go out of county to buy, you know. And then the big companies, when I went in business in the 92, the big companies started coming in. Walmart got in the grocery business. That was the start of our failure of our mom and pops. Walmart came in, they started pushing little mom and pops, and where the mom and pops are looking for cheaper prices. Then the big wholesale companies came in and cutting prices.
Yeah.
So Eden and Lamb was in business. They went out of business. Ray Wholesale, they sold out to a company down in Kentucky, and I sold out to Madison Wholesale over in Jackson, Tennessee. And when the wholesale companies were gone, the big companies said, "Okay,
Yeah.
if you don't buy X amount of dollars, we're not going to stop."
Yeah.
And that hurt the mom and pops because they couldn't buy, you know,
Yeah.
$1,500, $2,000 a week that they required to buy. And that's what was the downfall of our county, losing a lot of our retail stores and stuff.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, I got a bunch of receipts that come from a store in 1959. Back in the day, you could buy a stovepipe, bolts, nails, and a lot of our little stores down here around Finney.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go past Finney city limits, and you have everything you needed.
Yeah. Well, there's something to imagine that. You know, if you need something now, you do have to drive a long ways. But I imagine back then the cars they drove and stuff
That's right.
probably couldn't go
Yeah.
a long ways off to get things. But
Well, like I said, we didn't have a need to go,
yeah.
you know, because we had it all right here. I mean, I remember we had lumber yards all over town. We had the Thurman Lumber Company, Folkham Lanham, had Seaton Lumber Company here in Finley. And, you know, pretty well our town was sufficient. Everything they had, we had what we needed.
Yeah. That's something because, I mean, it is business. That's the nature of business.
That's right.
It's competitive. It's competitive. That's like an understatement. And so, you know, that's how it was. That's how it's become what it is now through, you know, the scenario you just laid out. But like, I don't know if it gets back to that, how, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much it would have to change because there were so many smaller communities that now have kind of like, you know, not that they've gone away, but they're not as established and self-sufficient as you put it. And now everything's becoming more centralized, and I mean, instead of going 5 minutes up the road and picking something up, you whip out the phone and get on Amazon, you have it the next day, so
Yeah.
how do you compete with that? I mean, they got it down pat.
Well, we're at fault for shopping the big stores and not shopping our littles, supporting them, just like our Save a Lot, the Food Right in Newburgh.
Yeah.
We need to support those.
That's right.
They're local, and we need to support them. I know we're getting a new grocery store here in town,
That's right.
but we don't need to forget our little guy,
Yeah.
because they'll go out if we
Yeah.
don't shop them. And that's the thing about why I'm running for mayor. I feel that we can do better. We need to invite people. People don't come to your house unless you invite them to come. And if I'm elected, I would like to get everybody to work together. The city board, the county board, mayors, all the politicians that, every office has got to be involved. We got to have realtors to make sure we have property available.
Oh yeah.
And we got to have statistics for the traffic. We have that.
Yeah.
I've got this little note here where my mom, 90, a 3-hour shopping trip at Walmart has been a blessing to me here in the last few months.
Yeah.
We went last Friday, and I ran into, I'm gonna say probably 10 couples, and every one of them, except 3, were from out of county shopping in Dyer County.
Really?
Had from Lake County, Gibson County, a lady from Troy, a couple people from Missouri, a couple from Lauderdale County. So we got over 6 counties shopping here.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity to invite some retail businesses here. If we get retail, that's gonna be our easy money to have sales tax revenue.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to raise taxes.
That's interesting. So, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the interview I did with Mr. Eric Moppin, and we were talking about, building up the local economy here in Dyer County, and he was talking about industry, a lot about industry. And I mean, I agree with that. We need better paying jobs for sure. But the vision that you're kind of laying out is talking about how there's so many different counties that are already coming to Dyer County.
Right, yeah.
And so maybe the path to upping, revenues for the county so that taxes don't have to be increased would be, we're already got visitors from other counties coming. So if we could draw them more or provide more services to them in retail.
Yes, I asked that question. What would y'all like for us to have? Sam's, that was the #1 for them.
Really?
If we had the Sam's, Stephen, the little mom and pop stores, those buildings are sitting around empty, they could come alive again, because people could get their product to open up a store like at church, and there's a building sitting there empty. The guy with Pagoda, he could stock that store because they have everything the store needs.
Yeah.
They have the candy, they have the potato chips, and the drink companies. Because when I was in the Wonder Bread the last few years, they told us if a store didn't buy $50 a week, stop working on them. And it just a domino effect. Potato chip companies quit doing it, milk quit doing it, ice cream people quit doing it. So when you can't supply your store,
Yeah.
you're sitting there with an empty wagon, and you can't afford to drive all the way to Jackson every day. If we had one within a 10-mile radius of those places, or 20 miles, they could come and they could stock those little stores. We might see some more little country stores open back up.
Yeah. Well, industry, bringing it to town, or retail, bringing retail
Yes.
to town. I imagine if I was a retail investor, that if I was looking at a place in West Tennessee where I was going to set up shop, I'd probably have to look at how many people are coming from out of county, what's the average income,
Right.
of the people
Yeah,
that
that's
live
the
in the
thing.
county.
I've been looking at that, and you talk about the industry. Yes, we do need it, but we as Dyer Countyans, we make our money here, and we go out of town to spend our money.
Yeah.
Go to Paris, go to Jackson. My wife, we went a month ago up to Paris. She spent the whole day in town, on the square downtown.
Yeah.
They have so many little shops and stuff going
Yeah.
on. And so, we take our money out of town, but the people that don't have Walmart, like Lake County in Missouri,
Yeah.
they come in here. So we have an opportunity to bring them in here, but we got to give incentives. So I've done a little study on the traffic there in front of Walmart. That road right there, 26 to 30,000 cars a day.
Jesus.
The interstate runs 12 to 14,000. And so then I thought, well, we got traffic. So I just took the census that they have on the internet and Googled, and all around the counties that we have, I got their population. Like Lake County, I think was 6,600. I think like 62 to 6,000. O'Brien County was like 30,000. Lauderdale County like 24,000. Kennett, Missouri 10,000. Carruthersville about 45 to 51. Dyer County, Dyer, Tennessee, I'm sorry, was like 2,300. Weakley County, which is a little further up, they're 33,000. We're 36,000.
Yeah.
You add this all up, we got about 148,000 people. Not saying they're all coming here to shop, but
Yeah.
we'll meet the requirements of 50,000. They want a 50,000 population to have a Sam's or
Really?
a restaurant or something like that, and they want traffic flow. We got it all.
Yeah.
We just got to get together, make an incentive package, and sit down and go invite those people. And I want to be that guy that they send me and knock on that door. I think it's more personal when you go and contact a person and say, "Can I come and sit down with you and want you to invite you to come to our town?"
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I feel about it. You know, knocking on doors on this, doing campaigning, knocking on the doors. People thank you for coming knocking on the door.
That's right. It means a lot to them.
That's right.
A lot of folks, as long as they've been living in the county or as long as they've been, alive, they've never had anybody come to their house and ask them if they vote for them. So,
And I won't make every door. Dyer County is a big place.
Yeah.
You know, county commissioners got their district.
Mm-hmm.
County mayor's got the whole county. I won't get every door. I'd love to. But if you see me out, if you know me, if you don't know me, I'm gonna come to you and talk to you.
Yeah.
I love people now.
Yeah, that's right.
I do love people.
That's what it takes.
Yeah.
You got to be a servant, not self-serving. You got to
That's
be
right.
willing to
That's
serve
right.
the public. And what we really need, and along the same lines of what you're saying, is we need a salesman. We need somebody that can sell the county
That's right.
to, investors, more or less. You know, to see that kind of thing come along. So
Because Rural King, for instance, it's a family operated, family owned.
yeah,
And they're looking for a building that's already there, so we have them on Country Mart. Maybe we could go invite them to come
yeah,
and show them what we have. These are not real numbers I'm gonna use, but if you give them the tax break, say property taxes of $10,000 a year, you forgive that tax, you may get that money back 10 times 1 month in sales tax time.
yeah.
Because everybody loves Rural King.
That's right. Yeah, they absolutely do. There's a ton of people from around here that drive up to Martin just to go to that.
You go to Martin, and back in the day when I ran the bread right in Lauderdale County, I see all those people up there, just today I was in Lowe's, ran into a young man in Lowe's, holler, "Hey, bread man." I knew he was from Lauderdale County, If they holler Candy Man, they had to be from Lake County or some of that area. So anyway, but yeah, we need the retail industry here, but we need industry as well. And, but the workforce.
That's another thing I was going to
We got to get these young people to want to go to work.
Yeah.
You get a restaurant, you get a store, you got to have people.
Absolutely.
And
Good people.
I don't mind paying a price for something as long as I'm getting good service. And then you can't work somebody for $10 an hour the way things are today.
No, you can't.
I mean, nobody can make a living doing it. Because if you could, we'd all still be in that situation. The big jobs over across the river, we're blessed with ERMCO,
Yeah.
with their pay, and we need more good paying jobs like that. But when we get these small companies to come in, these retail stores, we got, and the stores we have, we can make them get competitive with the prices.
Yeah, well, it made me think about a guy I know. I can name drop him, but I ain't going
That's
to.
right.
He's
That's right.
He's a successful farmer and businessman, and think a lot of him. But it's been a year or so ago. I actually just saw him out somewhere, and we stopped to talk. 30, 45 minutes, and at some point we were just talking about how Dyer County. I want optimism for our county.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I want people to believe that the best days are ahead for us.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that for the longest time he didn't think that was just going to be true. He thought that, you know, population was going to continue to taper down. He was talking about how one chicken place closes down, another chicken place opens up, and that's what jumped in my mind while you were talking, is because, you know, finding good help, you know, is a lot of the problem. And if retail or industry comes to town, that's one of the main things they're going to have to look at. They need a good workforce.
You know, we're stagnant right now, but we have opportunity to make this county grow. We got to work together on it. It's not an I thing. It's a everybody thing.
Yeah.
Like citizens, you know, what do you want here?
That's right.
What do you want?
That's right. Me?
We got to. No, I'm just saying the citizens in general. We got to ask them, what do you want here?
Yeah.
And you know, can't please everybody. And I'm not saying I'm gonna bring these places here, but I'm the guy who's gonna knock on that door and ask.
That's right.
Because if you don't ask, they won't ever come.
You have not because you ask not.
That's right.
You gotta ask.
That's exactly right. And you know, there's two words, yes and no.
That's right.
You know, so we got to work on that.
One more thing before I forget about it. You were talking about the steel mills across the river and stuff like that. I worked at the steel mills, you know, about 4 years. Big River Steel in Osceola. I worked at Nucor Yamato. I just saw where U.S. Steel, they bought out Big River. It was just Big River when I was there, but United States Steel bought them out a couple years after I left. And they just invested almost $2 billion. It's $1.9 billion. B with a, you know, billion with a B. And that's in Osceola. Wow. You know, and it just, we got the same river frontage they got. That's you know. And I remember when I was going to Nucor, when I left Big River and went to Nucor, they made us sit through a week-long like orientation class, if you will. And a lot of that was just like company history. And it was pretty cool. They talked a lot about Ken Iverson was his name. He was the original CEO of Nucor. Well, I say he was the original. Nucor used to be called Nuclear Corporation, and they changed the name to Nucor when Ken Iverson came along, and they were like struggling to do what they were doing, and they changed completely from whatever they were offering before. It was something nuclear. They went from that to steel mills, and you know, they started becoming a big steel manufacturer, and one thing led to another. They did the mini mill model, is what they call it, mini mills, which is just where they recycle scrap metal. You know, it ain't like they're having to go for raw resources out of the ground to make steel, and that, along with many other things, just made Nucor the great company that it is now. But anyways, you know, that he had that mindset to grow that company, and that was really good for them. But anyways, I say all that to say this: why was it Blytheville? Why did they pick Blytheville to throw down a Nucor back in the, gosh, I don't remember when the first one opened at Hickman. Was that the 70s or something? Yamato opened in 88. But anyways, they said because land was so cheap. Yeah. I remember them saying that land was cheap. And I'll tell you, I don't know what it would have been worth back then to have anywhere up and down the river in Tennessee. But if you would have cut the price in half, made it competitive with what Arkansas had going on, like you think about how many people from Tennessee are driving over there to work every day.
That's right.
If you could have put that on this side of the river, dude, it would have been it would have paid dividends over time.
Sure it would.
I don't know why they ended up planting their roots where they did exactly, but just the money from the land had a lot to do with it. And, you know, I understand people not wanting to give up what they got along the river. I mean, it is prime real estate, but at the same time, it seems like that it would have been well worth it. I mean, even if you'd have traded the land for stock in that company, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That'd have been all right.
And you know, I've noticed here in the last few years, well, they closed Walmart down in Carruthersville. Carruthersville has nothing. And now you look at real estate across the river. Mm-hmm. A house over there is $79,000, $80,000.
Yeah.
That house will bring $289,000 over here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of houses over there for sale, and you're thinking, why are they selling? They got all the jobs, but they don't have any retail.
Yeah, good point.
If you got to drive 10 miles to get a gallon of milk,
ain't no good.
You know, and that's sad that all of our little towns are dried up because all of our retails are gone in the same way. All their money's made. They're in Blytheville, but most of the people are not living in Blytheville. They spend their money elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the land. You talk about land. We're going to need land for retail businesses.
Yeah.
I don't want to take nobody's land, give them a fair price, but I
Yeah.
hope someone willing to step up and sell some land to get those. I remember my wife in 1998 was on the jury when they bought the property from Mr. Paul Yarber out there where the new industrial park where the spec building is.
No kidding.
She was on that jury, and they were comparing that property there with Steep Ridge off of Miss Kelly Lou. Me and Daddy had some Milo down there. It was Casey King's grandmother on that farm. We farmed that little farm. And in June, Backwater was in the Milo. They were having that jury in there.
Yeah.
And my wife said, wait a minute, y'all not comparing apples with apples.
Yeah.
And some guy asked her, said, well, what do you know about real estate? She said, well, I know where Steep Ridge is. And she said, Backwater's in the Milo right now. And y'all talking about hill ground. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think they came to an agreement. Mr. Paul got more than what they wanted to give him for his land.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
So we got land out there up and down Community Park Road.
Yeah.
There's a farm there.
Yeah.
The family be willing to sell. I mean, if they want to make a big horseshoe, make another little mall,
Yeah.
or something like a Menards over in up in the upper part of Missouri there.
Yeah.
Cape Girardeau. You know, it's a king's size Lowe's. That'd be a great thing for us to have.
Yeah.
You know, and like I say, I think it's Walmart. I think they say they need, like for Sam's, it's like 25 acres. Menards needs 20 acres. They're big buildings.
Yeah.
I looked it up and what they need. Restaurant need 1 or 2 acres with 160 parking spaces around and things like that.
Yeah.
So we gotta have property.
Yeah.
And property people don't want to give up. Now, I get that, but if we're gonna grow
Yeah.
as a county, and people want us to grow, and that property's there in town, but now we gotta look at some things here in town. I didn't realize that a lot of property on Lewis Creek is in the flood zone,
Yes.
out there where they built Hobby Lobby and all that.
Oh no.
That in there is it?
Is it really?
It's connected to that creek there, so you have to watch. But we can bring dirt in. They done proved that. Man, we hauled dirt out at the highway department where they built that new building out there for the transport company for Ermco.
Yes.
They gave Jeff all that dirt, and man, we got a mountain of dirt off that. You know, so you know you can move dirt around and make places where we can build.
Yeah.
And you know, I wouldn't want to build something in a flood zone if I own a business. So everything's got to be looked at.
Yeah.
You know, but everybody else is talking about budget transparency. But like I say, revenue is where I'm looking at, because I'm you know, property taxes
Yeah.
or wheel taxes. I believe if we get this revenue in, we could probably drop our wheel tax a little bit. Property taxes, you can't say we're not going to pay them. We need them. We
That's
need
right.
that money. But we also, you know, we can get grants. Grants is a good thing if it's used right. And you get that grant money, we can't tell them what we want it for. They tell us what it's for.
Yeah. That's right.
That's backwards. Like at the water plant out there, for instance, they want to put in those meters
Mhm.
before they fix the pipe.
Mhm.
They talk about quick revenue. Well, I know one reason why they done it. The engineer's quick money for him.
It is. Oh no.
He don't have to design anything.
Okay.
He's just got to get the money. They buy the meters, get the meters put in. But they are generating revenue some. But when you're pumping treated water in the ditch, you know, I've said it before, but I call it putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Let's fix those pipes, and that's something we've got to get into as well in our water system. Pagoda needs that water tank down there. You know, I work there. I know the problems in the water systems in this country have been put in the 60s. We go back to the retail. The city's got the water. We have the utilities for those companies coming in. But if we're going to do anything for our citizens,
Yeah.
we need clean drinking water.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no reason why it's gotten the shape it's in. But all over the country, when I went to work at the water plant, I realized all water systems were put in the 60s or earlier, and they had galvanized pipe.
Yeah.
And you know what it is when you lose a plow out here in the field and find it 60 years later.
Yeah.
You can't recognize what it is
Yeah.
in some of it. But, you know, again, there's money out there to get if we work at it. But if it's a grant and we don't need it, and you got to match it. If it's something we don't need, let the other county next to us, if they need that money, let them have it. if it's a no match grant and it's something we could use it for, we get that money. I want every dollar we can get in this county to, well, we don't have to raise our taxes.
Yeah.
And we can do a budget with extra money without having to put the burden on the citizens.
So you see the path forward more towards the retail side, which you sound like an expert in all of it. I mean, I believe you as you're talking, you know, especially your work history. You know a lot more about it than a common person would as far as how retail would work.
Yeah.
But
like I say, you got a lot of little our little restaurants. Usually we had a produce house here, Bill used some produce when we had all the other wholesale. They didn't have to go to Walmart or Kroger or wherever to get their produce to run their restaurants. Most of our people run these restaurants. When they close that door at 2 o'clock, they're not done working. They got to go buy supplies.
yeah,
There, if they can't get it off of the truck, and they can buy it cheaper at Walmart or Kroger, whatever. They can buy it cheaper than they can buy it off a truck.
really.
So they have to shop wise so they can make money, but not charge extra prices that they have to charge high prices on the food. And you know, now a hamburger meal is more than a plate lunch at some of our little local restaurants.
It is.
You know, and we got to support those little local restaurants all we can.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about infrastructure for these retail businesses if they were to come in. You know, you talked about Walmart, Sam's, Menards, and about how much ground they would need. And you've already mentioned that the city say that if it was within the city of Dyersburg, and obviously it would have to be, they got plenty of water. Do you have any idea about how it would affect the workforce, or, you know, how many people do you think, I ain't got a clue in the world how many folks it would take to have a Sam's Club running or Menards. I'm guessing as many as Lowe's, but I don't even know how many people either one of them places employ.
That's what I say, you know, when you go by Lowe's parking lot early in the morning, there's several cars there. Now, I can tell you, our Dollar Generals, they're not staffed.
No, absolutely they're not.
So, and I don't know if
No.
it's a company thing or if it's an employee thing, but I think it's more of a company thing.
Really?
Yeah, because when I worked Wonder Bread, one girl or one man would open the store up in the morning time. When that key turned in that door, man, there were people in the parking lot.
Dang.
And I get it. They waited on their customer before they would check the vendor. Sometimes I'd stay 30 minutes, but they were understaffed. And, you know, some of those people would go in before time so they could get the cash registers ready and all of that.
Yeah.
On their time, because they said, well, they won't allow us to have overtime and all that. So, yeah, having people, man, they take a lot. I was in Sam's yesterday. I had to go to the doctor. And I was over at Sam's, and man, they're pulling orders. You know how they do in here in Dyersburg, pick up your orders, and they're pulling for businesses.
Really?
You could tell because it was bulk.
Yeah.
Like anything, you could tell. You can tell when a business person calls in an order and when somebody's getting it for themselves.
Yeah.
So that business person, he's not getting 2 cases of Gatorade or water. He's getting 15 or 20. and because a small business don't have a delivery guy.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they're buying those big boxes of chips, you know, when they individual sell, they ain't getting 1, they getting 4 or 5. So
Yeah.
you can, and they were pulling those carts over there, I mean, left and right over by the service desk. And, you know, and out here at Walmart, those people pulling those orders. They're probably pulling for a lot of the businesses because it's easy on the businessman now. He knows what he wants to get it pulled over there. So it'd take a lot of people.
Yeah, I bet it would. And see, that's why it makes me think back to what I told you, a friend of mine said about how, you know, you want to be optimistic, but it ain't growth that you see. It's just changing. One chicken place closes,
That's right.
another opens.
That's right.
Or one place closes down, and another type opens, but it's not the growth, you know. And you kind of see that everywhere. I mean, I think about, and this is kind of a detour, but even church stuff, a lot of times, I wish churches would grow.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, a lot of times what you see is they don't grow, just maybe people go from one church to another. And it's not that, you know, the church may be growing, but I'd like to see new converts. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's the same kind of thing where business, you want to see new businesses, you want to see more workers coming. I mean, it really all has to come together, and it's going to take a lot to make that kind of thing happen, you know.
And you know, back, a friend of mine had a store here on the bypass, and it was just rollover. By the time you get them trained, they'd leave.
Yeah.
And I'd watched the stores, how they operated in all different counties, and down in Lauderdale County, a friend of mine, and this is back when they were paying $7, $8 an hour. He paying 10 and 12, but he never had rollover. He never had employees leave.
Yeah.
He had people wanting to go to work, but it costs more money to train somebody than it is to keep them. And that's where I go into county employees. Up there in all those offices up there, we train them. If we're not paying good money, the county next to us, if they're paying more money, you can understand with the
Absolutely.
leaving. And the thing of it is, the county don't have a retirement. They have 401k. They offer a state retirement. Now this is, because I know this, I worked there and I worked at the water plant. I'm in the state retirement from the water plant.
Yeah.
If these people that were in the state retirement has been in the county 20 and 30 years, they could retire with a good retirement, good Social Security. That'd open up a job for young people. We got 70-year-old people working, because they got to have insurance and they got to have income.
Yeah.
So I think the county should get us in that state retirement. I know Mr. Peckinpah, Miss Bradshaw brought it up when they had their debate talking about cut services or raise taxes so we can keep these people. We train them, they leave. That's why. We get that retirement and explain to them that, you're going to get this at the end. Always not the best thing doing trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But when you get ready at my age, ready to retire, you want to have some income that you can retire.
Yeah.
Open up a place for young people to come.
Yeah.
So, it's a burden on all of us, but we got to pay these people to go to work.
Yeah, you got to.
I don't want to work for nothing.
Well, that's why I was at the steel mill in the first place. There are other jobs I could have got around here if I wanted to, but if you're going to work for a living, then you need to go where the money's at.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I don't blame anybody for making the drive to go make more money if it's what's best for you and your family, but just what kills me is why we can't have more like that to offer locally.
I'm glad Armco stepped up.
I am too.
Because there's a lot of folks quit across the river because Armco's opened the door up for more good paying jobs.
That's right.
And that's what we got to have. And a lot of these retail stores, that's what they look at. They won't look at how much a person makes, a family makes.
Yep.
They look at that income.
Yeah.
Can they afford us to come into our town, into their town? Because we're going to pay our employees good. That's a good thing for us.
That's right. Well, man, I wish, bringing more companies to town for workers. Because if you'd give me the, $60 an hour across the river or $50 an hour right here in Dyer County, I probably would have took the 50.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Or
45, I would have thought about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but at the time, you're talking about going and making twice as much money. Well, you might as well get ready to drive.
My wife
you know what I'm saying?
My wife drives to Jackson every day. Been doing over 20 years.
Dang.
500 miles a week. And she works for West Tennessee Healthcare, which back in the day was Mid-South, where she worked, and they sold out to West Tennessee, and they transferred her over there. So she's going where the money is.
Yeah. And
you got to do what you got to do, and it wears a car out, brakes, tires.
Yeah.
And it's another thing on the license plate. She bought a hybrid this past year. We did not know it. That license plate's an extra $100.
It is?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because you're not buying as much gas.
Oh, man.
Yes, sir. We didn't know it.
Oh.
But we did when we got that license plate.
Dang it.
It's $219 for her car.
That's messed up.
But, they gonna get that dollar. But that's again, if we get these sales tax revenue coming in here, maybe we can eliminate that problem.
Yeah.
Because that's another burden on someone. And I'm thinking, wow, what if they got Blue Oval going and built all those electric vehicles?
Yeah.
People been in the pickle. License plate might have been 400.
Ain't no telling. Yeah, there ain't no telling. But I don't know what's happening with that. It's funny you bring up Blue Oval because, they were guns blazing ready to get going down there, and I think they postponed it, when Trump got elected and all the Biden era crap kind of got pushed back.
And that was a lot of government money involved in that.
I'm sure it was.
That's just like the Riverport up there at Kate's Landing.
Yeah.
A lot of money been put in up there. There's nothing happened yet.
Mm.
I don't know what the situation is.
Tell me, just pretend I'm stupid for a minute and I don't know nothing, but just lay it out. Like Kate's Landing, when was that project started, and what was its
I
intent?
don't know the exact date, but they were planning on having a river port up there.
A river port.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
If you go up, what is the Wycliffe, Kentucky?
Yeah.
You go up there, their barges tied up all up there, and it's like a little river port going on. They barges swapping barges out and
Yeah.
stuff, and I don't know if that's what they were intending there. They were going to build a building there, had a concrete slab and all that.
Really?
So, and they ran the railroad track up there now. The little tin can from there in Finland.
Yeah.
It goes all the way up there now. They never had a railroad track go past there. It always went to Hickman.
Yeah.
But they ran that track up there. And they got an industrial park sign up there with some property. So somebody's came off some property.
Yeah.
And I hope they get some industry up there.
I hope they do too.
But, because that's a poor county. And I'll never forget, Danny Cook was the city mayor at the time in Tiptonville. And their census was low on the population, and it's hard to get money. He done the greatest thing I ever saw a politician do.
What's that?
He annexed prison.
Oh wow!
He got him about 2,200, I think.
There you
New
go.
citizens of Tiptonville, Tennessee, and that gave him more money. And that's very important too. We fill out those census when they send them out to us.
Yeah.
We think it's junk mail. No, we need to fill those out.
Yeah.
That's how we get our government money. That's how we get the grant money, the things we need. To
Every
help us
10
out.
years.
Yeah.
Next one's 2030.
Yeah, and see, that's where we think it's junk mail, but it's not. That's what helps us more than anything.
Yeah, I saw a graph. I can't remember who posted it, but it was talking about population trends in West Tennessee. It's actually all Tennessee, but I mean, I can't remember. I think Shelby County was like the only urban like place that was down. They were like way down. We were slightly down. I think it was like 2% or something.
Yeah, all of these towns that I looked up, every one of them had a decline.
Really?
And I don't think it's probably as accurate because people threw it in the garbage.
Really?
The census. You take a lot of these young people, that's not on their mind. When I was a kid, I didn't think about property taxes. I didn't think about car taxes.
Yeah.
When I was 18, 19-year-old running around.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me a bit. But I never remember hearing my mom and dad either talk about the burden of taxes and license plates. But then again, you start to think everybody spent their money here.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to the revenue. I keep harping on it, but it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm running on. David's done a good job on what he's done. He helped that water plant out.
Yeah.
He stepped up. I went to the previous mayor when they had all that money going around during COVID and all. He had some money, could have helped me. But yet they didn't give me none. And I knew then I had to leave that water plant because I didn't see no help in the future. And I remember the debate that Steve was in with Mr. Peckinpah, and he asked them about that money they had, what they do with it. We gave it to nonprofits.
Nonprofits.
That's what he said. I mean, I'm not trying to knock somebody down. I'm not trying to slander, mudsling. I'm just saying what I heard, and it's on video, that they gave it to nonprofits, and they knew this water company was in trouble. And I think they talked about $7 million they gave to nonprofits. If I would have had $2 million, that would have helped out. And if we would have got that $2 million with Pagoda's situation now, we probably could have took and helped Pagoda out to get that water tank that they need.
Yeah.
Then.
Man, that's a chunk of change. So
yeah.
I don't. I'm sure there's a way to find out. I'm not good at being able to find where to look stuff up online like that.
Right.
But I'm sure the nonprofits do good work, so I wouldn't want to take away from that.
No.
Down there where I live, I've had people tell me they're sick of hearing about it. The water issue. They don't want me to say. They don't want me to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just pretend that it isn't happening or it's not affecting people. But I mean, every day there are women I know. Some of them's my family, some of them ain't. That I know for a fact hate taking baths in it, or will not take a bath in it. Hate taking showers in it. I've heard a few people say they think it's affecting their hair. That may be all in their head. I don't know, but I tell you that when you draw bath water and it looks like yellow brown, I don't want to hear about all the, how everything's great and fine and dandy. It's not. And I can tell you probably at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people who refuse to drink it. They buy jugs of water from Walmart, put in their coffee maker, put in their tea.
Yeah.
You know, it's just.
Well, you know, it's like here on the river. You got well water.
Yeah.
You can hit a bad one, you can hit a good one.
Yeah.
And it's iron.
Yeah.
That orange, brown.
Yeah.
Your bathroom, your toilets will turn yellow, gold, brown.
Yeah.
I worked for Mr. Steve North over there on his farm, and I laughed. His daddy lived in Crockett County. He swore they put the pump in the septic tank down the stairs. You know, you turn the hot water on, man. That sulfur was
rotten eggs.
Yes,
Coming out the faucet. Woo.
And from the backwater, got his shop, and we remodeled the shop down there. It wasn't 2 weeks. I told it was brown. I thought, well, they should have made the old brown one like they did back in the day, just stick it in there, you know.
Ooh,
but yeah, the water systems there is problems, and you know, and they're talking about that Finley plant. I had to shut it down because I don't know if they didn't do test wells on it when they put it in, but that water, I had the chemical company come in. They put in all chemicals they could, trying to clean up the well, and they couldn't clean them up. They won't open it up again. I don't know if it's a good idea, if they're going to drill new wells, what they're going to do, but it's going to cost a lot of money. And I think they ought to take the money, in my opinion, and work on the plant they got, make it a little bigger. You can make the flock tank bigger. And, you know, and the cost of stuff in the water system is crazy. I kind of made a man mad at me over it.
Oh, no.
The well out there about back, I applied, that's the first time I applied for a grant to get a well fixed. There's 3 wells out there, and you got to have at least 2 running at all times. But it's always nice to have that 3rd one, and it's always been 3. Well, 1 caved in. Applied for the grant, $1 million to put a well in.
Right.
And it's the same casing, the same motor head, the same pump as you got on the farm down here.
So why $1 million?
That's what the guy said, well, it's drinking water. And I looked at him, I said, well, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm not an engineer, you are. I said, but the thing of it is, it's not drinking water till it hits that aerator. That's the first part of the water system.
Yeah.
Goes in the aerator, you put your chemicals in it, goes to a flock tank. The iron settles out. It leaves the flock tank, goes into the filter system. You filter your water, goes into the clear well. Leaves clear well, hits the system, goes into our tanks and into our homes. So when I said that, it wasn't the right answer. But we still got the grant.
Yeah.
But it's not drinking water till it goes to that water system. And why they do what they do.
You think it has something to do with the liability of it being drinking water or something? I mean, I don't know. Because it will eventually be used for drinking water.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
But it's the same groundwater.
But you talking about how much is to wash a well for an irrigation system in the bottom's like 20 grand?
Well, Mr. Steve North, you know, I asked him, he said top 60,000.
How much?
60,000.
60,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that night we had the meeting with the uptown over
Yeah.
the grant money for the water tank, or for the water meters for Bogota getting
Yes,
that
sir.
water tank.
Yeah.
And I asked Steve that night, and he said about 60,000. That's a far cry from $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, and once the engineers get their money or get that grant started, they start drawing a check. And they ran out of money before they got that well finished. And I'm not sure if they got it running yet. It was 2019, Stephen, when I applied for that grant.
So
we are 2026. The last I heard, they hadn't had it running yet. They got the well drilled, they got the casing, they got the motor head on it. So I don't know what stage of the job they're at. But I'm just thinking, wow, why did it take that long? And I think the mayor had to get extra money to help finish this job, and they're not finished yet. You know, if a farmer gets his put in, it's not that long. It's not 5 or 6 years.
Oh no, you get on the list, and as soon as they get to
Yes,
you, you
sir.
get it knocked out. I imagine it's the same year kind of deal.
And I know that one out there is like 400 feet deep.
Well, I mean, a typical well down here might be
That's right.
300, 400 foot. Yeah.
That's right. We don't know how deep you got to go, but again, like I say, they want to open up that Finley plant because it's an issue there at the river, Forkadere River there. The water line runs under the river on the bypass there, and that feeds Finley, Tennessee. That feeds Middle City, Evansville, and if that breaks, we're out of water without that water plant running.
Dang.
But the city, they got all the equipment to hook up there to McDowell Center And I told him, I said, well, you know, that's good because the McDowell Center had those children, they need water. There's a couple of times I almost let them run out of water, but we were blessed enough to get the water line fixed and still had enough so that they could stay in there. But if it breaks under that river and down by the railroad track there on the bypass goes over to Evansville, there's a big 8-inch main there, and it's broke a few times. And you don't know where your leak is when you're out in the woods and down a railroad track.
Yeah.
And you know, we had an issue there a couple of times. So I told him, I said, not only there do you need to hook up, but you need to hook up over there in front of Lowry's old body shop. That's where our last line went to, 6-inch main there. I said, the city's over there at their new body shop. You need to put in a hook up there. That way when we need water,
Switch over.
they can switch over and supply Finley, Evansville, Middle City. They haven't worked it out. Lawyers got involved, you know, and DSCUD board said, well, they try to charge us way more. They do it by formula. They don't just sit down and say, hey, this is how much we're going to charge per gallon.
Yeah.
Let's break it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're common folks.
Yeah.
We're simple.
Yeah.
Just break it down.
Mm.
Because the minimum bill here in DSCUD, 2,000 gallon for a home for a month is $28.38. That's what a minimum bill is, whether you use a gallon or not.
Yeah.
Anything over that, it increases. So they need to come up with something there and hook those two systems together just for backup. We're hooked up at Lennox.
Yeah.
And I had to use them 1 year there at Lennox to help me keep us from running out of waters in the wintertime. And, you know, it's good we all work together like that.
That's right.
And I tell you, I had Tommy help me out. I had Casey King and his crew up at Newbern help me out sometime.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do as a county. We all got to work together. And, you know, if there's grant money and they all need help, we need to share that grant money, because I know at the time I was asking for the money, I heard, well, you know, Friendship people over in Tiger get their water out of Friendship. Well, they gonna need some money, or Tommy's gonna need money. But all of them wasn't in the bad shape that we're in on the DSCUD.
Yeah.
And some of them were ready to give what they were gonna get to help us out.
Yeah.
But the help never came, and that's why I had to leave. But David has really stepped up on that part. I give him credit for that.
Well, I tell you one thing, it would be exciting, which is just as you laid out. It ain't just one water system that's got issues. It's many. Like it's more rare to find one that's really got everything set than it is for one that isn't having issues, whether it's with iron in the water or with low pressure or whatever the issue might be. You sound like the man who'd be an expert, who would be perfect for a role where you could have more influence to try to,
and
make
the guy,
some stuff happen.
The guy that is the engineer out there is a great guy. He come along, he's helped out a lot. He knows where the money can come from. And maybe he'd be willing to help the county.
Yeah.
We don't know that. The county, as far as I know, don't have a grant writer. That makes a big difference in running the county. We got to have that.
Is there something, I thought maybe I misunderstood David, current mayor, when he was talking about something with the chamber that they were doing to basically set up a grant writer for the county, or is that right?
I'm not sure what they got going on, but that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great, because, again, we got to have tax dollars to keep the highways up, the schools, whatever we need. We need a grant writer, because that's where our funding comes from.
Yeah.
It's from the federal government, which it is tax dollars. People want to jump up and holler, oh, it's grant, that's free. There's no such thing as free money.
Yeah.
It's coming out of somebody's pocket.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you know somebody out of county or whatever. That's okay if you know them, but are they going to help us?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I tell you, when you see some of this stuff, like, this is totally unrelated. I certainly hope there ain't nothing going on in Tennessee like this, but you never know. But all the crap that went down in Minnesota with the daycares that didn't even have no kids going to them, and a lot of the government was paying for all that junk. That'll make you want to fight for a grant. It's like, if y'all shelling out money and
give me some.
Ain't that the truth?
I'm gonna open up a store and not build a building.
It's kind of crazy,
Yeah, and that's what I say. The grants, we need to go to the state level. We get our county level fixed and going. We need to go to Rusty Grills, Custoff. They're supposed to represent us.
Yep.
They should be the ones go up to say, look, let us tell you as a county, wherever it may be, what we need the money for. Don't tell us we got $1 million grant over here you can get, 100,000 match, but this is all you can use it for.
Yeah.
Let us say what we need it for.
It's kind of crazy how there is that disconnect though between, like, say, you know, what you're talking about, grant money that's available for X, Y, and Z, and then we're over here and we have needs A, B, and C.
That's right.
They don't align. You know what I'm saying?
None at all.
But it's crazy how they have stuff available, but it's got to meet certain criteria. You almost wish that there'd be like a little bit more flexibility to it somehow, so that there could be more of a coming together between local and state.
Like I say, it looked like we could get something together, contact them since they are our representatives.
That's right.
And say, okay, we need these water lines fixed. We need that money for the water line. We don't need that money to fix that water plant. We don't need that money to put these meters in first. We need that money to put these pipes in first.
Yeah.
But you got to play their game to get that money right now.
Yeah.
But we need to change the game. How you do it, I don't know, but we're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
At the state level there, then go to the federal level, ever how it goes, we got to do that. And you know, you can be a great speaker. You can know a lot of people. But if they got their mind set up, it's not going to hit.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get out there and do the work, get it going. You know, I got a little mailer handed to me the other day. Eric said he's going to maintain the roads, the bridges, and the drainage of the county. That's Jeff Jones's job. You know, and if I don't win the election, if Eric is the mayor, am I going to work for Eric or Jeff Jones? So
you'll be working for Jeff.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. But
if Jeff wanted to run for mayor, he'd probably take over.
He can run the whole county, and he does a good job. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not throwing that out there to a mudslinger or nothing. But the thing of it is, the mayor needs to go out here, and we need to visit these people. Like I say, if we got to get Rusty involved to get this changed on that part where we can get the money going, that's where we need to go and get this county on the track. Let the CLB do their job.
Yeah.
They the one to spend the money. They the one to budget the money out. The mayor don't have a lot to say about that. He's just kind of overseer. You know what I'm saying? He's a PR man. That's what I'm seeing. I'm going to the board meetings. You know what I'm saying?
PR man.
Yeah. That's about all I'm saying, because you go to those board meetings, the mayor don't get to say a lot, you know.
Well, the mayor answers to the COB.
Yeah.
He lays out a vision.
That's right. That's right.
And if you know the COB don't get behind it for whatever reason, then it's time to back up and regroup.
You know, that's we all got to work together.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that up there.
And I hate to see the disconnect or whatever you want to call it, but. You know, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Psalms 133. It says how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity.
That's right.
And it goes on to say that's where God commanded the blessing, even life forevermore.
Yeah.
You know, so
it would be a blessing, because it'd be just a steady flow of all of us working together, the city with the county, you know, and as we go along and work together instead of fighting each other. You know what? It's harder to try to not do the job right than it is to work smart and get it done the first time.
You know, there's a way to disagree and, and still be in unity with each other.
Right. That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like you see it one way, I see it another. We still want what's best for Dyer County.
That's right. That's right.
So let's compromise, and that's a bad word for a lot of people.
And let's don't do it for a few.
That's right.
Do it for the county.
That's right.
You know, don't do it for a few. And you know, and that's just like when I see people, like I say, I told you earlier, I love people. I don't care who you are, I'm gonna walk up and talk to you, you know.
Yeah.
But we get to talking on a subject, and I'm gonna talk to them. But you listen to the people and find out what they see. You know what I mean? And everybody got a want.
Yeah, they do.
And everybody gonna make you gonna be a magician and give him. Oh, he said he's gonna do that. You know, so I don't want to be said. Jerry Brock said he's gonna bring Lowe's in here. He gonna bring Menards. He gonna bring Roadhouse. State houses. I want it. I want it for our county.
Yeah.
But we all gonna have to do it together.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want that finger point and say, "Well, he didn't do what he said," because a lot of that happens in politics, and I don't care if it's the state level, federal level. It all happens in politics. But at the end of the day, we need to do it for all of us, all of our citizens. You know.
I feel like one of the only promises that a politician can really make, which would be accurate, is I promise to work hard.
That's right. That's right.
And then, if someone says something like that, you need to look at their life up to the point, that they're running for something and be like, is this person a hard worker?
Yeah.
You don't get to say, I'm going to work hard when you ain't worked an honest day in your life.
That's right. Yeah.
If hard work, you might be the first person hard work ever killed. Don't get up there and say that I'm going to work hard.
Yeah.
But what I like so much about you, your work history, you are a working man, you're a hustler. I can see that. I like that. I admire that.
Appreciate that.
I think it'd be really good for us, and however things end up going, I'm real excited, and I like, everything that you've laid out.
If I don't win, if somebody listens and sees this and they take my ideas and run with it, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm still a winner.
That's right.
And I like for it to happen.
Well, I tell you, in some capacity, one way or another, your input, as much as anybody else's as a citizen, but especially when it comes to things like maybe retail or with, water systems especially, you offer like a really cool combination of what your service could be to the county. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I get calls now from the guys at the water plant. I don't brush them off.
Yeah.
They want to know where a water line is. I know. I want to tell them.
Good. I'm glad. Don't.
And I went out when I first left. I went out and helped them fix a few leaks.
Yeah.
I'm not. I want our water system to work for all of us.
That's right.
I want our county to work for all of us. I'm there to serve. And that's what I want to do. Be a servant. I'm on the back of my cards. I put Philippians on there.
Yeah.
Humbly serve.
That's right.
Not for myself, but to serve my brothers and sisters, and that's what we got to do.
That's right.
Serve one another. Work with one another, and we'll get along. And like I say, whoever wins in the election is the commissioners, whatever position they're in, I'll work with every one of them. And I've heard term limits. Term limits is going to be a whole new ballgame.
Yep.
The way I look at term limits is you can't have somebody run for Miss Diane's job. I know they only want to work 8 years. They got to go look for a job. I've been there.
Yeah.
At 50-year-old, it's hard to look for a job. So, but if you don't do a good job, guess what? You can be voted out.
That's right.
So the people in the clerk's offices, I don't see putting a term, but if they don't do a good job, they get voted out. If they do a good job, let them get their 20 years.
Yeah.
And if you got state retirement, they got a good retirement, and they got people in the office there that they're just learning. They got young people out in the community, just like at the sheriff's department. We train them, they leave because they got the state retirement at the other counties.
Yeah.
Well, on the sheriff, I can see terms on that because you got people trained up that's worked there 20, 30 years.
Correct.
All right, you got a person that's 60-year-old, say like myself, and he's got his time in on his retirement. So if he runs for sheriff, he's qualified, he wins. By the time he gets 2 terms, he's 68-year-old, he's ready to retire.
Yeah.
He's already got his retirement. Then you got another one behind him that's trained up.
That's right.
So that term limit, I can see with the sheriff's department. Jeff Jones' job, no way. No way could that be a term job. Same deal. You think you're gonna go to work and you go in there 8 years and you're done? I don't see that happening.
Well, it's a different thing. So, like, I'm for term limits. I think everybody is
Right.
to some degree.
That's right.
Now, let me back up and say this. Do we believe there should be term limits? Well, first of all, I'm going to get myself in a mess here trying to explain myself. All my thoughts jumbled up.
Yeah.
You make all things just...
That's right.
I have a million things
They say he
coming
said
to
that.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah, you get that finger at you.
But no, those are specialty things. County
Okay.
clerk,
They're
highway
full-
department.
They're full-time jobs.
Correct. And it is, but the job of a commissioner,
They need to be term
or
limits.
maybe even mayor. Yes, I think
Term
mayor
limits.
too.
Same way with
And
mayor.
because why? Because they represent.
That's right.
Just representing your friends and neighbors and speaking on behalf of them is a little bit different than knowing the ins and outs of how everything works for car tags or
That's
you
right.
know, double wides or whatever else
That's
that a
right.
county clerk might have to deal with.
That's right.
And that's a can of worms by itself. Same with the highway department. You know what I'm saying? Those are specialty things.
That's right.
Whereas just showing up to speak on behalf of your friends, neighbors, people
Represent
that
your
you're
community.
representing, that's not the same
It's not a
thing.
full-time job.
All right, so now that I've said that, I think we all, you know, I pick on Nancy Pelosi a lot because she's been there forever.
That's
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But we think there should be term limits for Congress, let's say.
Yeah.
All right, what should they be? If people think 2 years. What if we made it 35 years or 40 years? How many people would not be able to serve right now? Quite a bunch.
That's
I ain't
right.
done my numbers, but
That's
a bunch of them have been in there for over 35 years. All right. So now say, if that's what it should be for federal, you know, and the skill set as you climb the levels in government, it's more and more and more. So you need more time in each role, right?
That's right.
But down at the state level, I think that it should be less than whatever we agree the federal level should be. You know what I mean? But not 8 years. And even if I was going to say county commissioners, like I've heard some people throw out 8 years or 2 terms. You know, that's. Some people have told me they don't think that's long enough. I heard one guy in the forum say that it took him 8 years to figure out how everything worked. Even if you made it 16 years, I think this election cycle, 3 people or 4 wouldn't have been able to run as county commissioners, and next election cycle, nearly half.
You know,
So my point is that, you know, and get to this, and I'll shut up, I promise. I know you're the guest, you need to be talking, not me.
Good. You're good.
But when we get to that point, you know, I think that the balance may need to be somewhere around 16 to 20 for local, 30 for state, 40 for federal, or something like that. I know that sounds like way too much, but you got to start somewhere, you know.
Yeah. I think when you're talking about the county commissioners, we have to alternate. Don't get rid of all your knowledge at one time.
Yeah.
Put it in the districts. You know, you got 2 in each district.
Yeah.
Alternate them where you still got somebody that knows how to run the government, has got knowledge of it. So if you got a guy in there's got 8 years, it's time for him to go out. The other guy's got 4 years. He's got 4 more years to serve. You get this other guy in there, he works if you're doing 2 terms. So you got a new guy over here in position A, for example. So that guy, he got 4 years. This guy has got but 4 left.
Yeah.
That's 2 terms. What would you do? Say, you give them a year break, or give them a 4-year break.
Yeah.
Then they can come back and run again.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Would that work that way?
Yeah.
That way that guy. But we ought to be able to sit down if that guy can't run anymore, still offer his knowledge if he's a server.
That's right.
If he says he's serving the county, and when those young people are in there, the new people are in there, they ask him for advice. Well, you wanted the job.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? It's on you.
Yeah.
Don't be like that.
I hope it wouldn't be that way.
That's what I'm saying. But that's why it don't need to be that way.
Yeah.
If you're really doing it for your county, and you're really doing it for the right reason, you ought to be willing to say, hey, I offer you anything, just like I did the water plant. I'm not bragging on myself.
Yeah.
I still offer that help if they need it.
Well, that's good. But it would also, like, it would put a mandate on current leadership to be looking for who the next person is going to be.
That's what I'm saying. Have train them up.
Exactly.
Train them
you know, why does it got to be the kind of thing where it's like, I'm a commissioner, I'm going to be a commissioner from now on as long as I can.
Yeah.
Why not be like, I've served, served my community, and now it's time to, I ain't going to try to handicap the next guy that's coming up. I would rather support him and push him forward and help him do the best, way better than I even thought about.
Because you're still going to live in this county.
That's right.
So,
and what we need, as bad as anything, is to raise up that next generation. That's a part of it. It brings the whole thing full circle. You know what I mean?
Every community needs to go out and pick somebody.
Yeah.
And the guy that's in office, he needs to get somebody that he trusts.
Be looking for somebody,
to come in and take my place.
Yeah.
And that way, we got new faces, new ideas, and still, if it's good enough for a president, it's good enough for a governor.
Yeah.
On term limits. And there's different situations, like I explained there, and you did too, on like the specialty jobs.
Yeah.
But like say, nobody would run if they thought they was only gonna work 8 years.
That's right.
And couldn't have a retirement. You need at least work for the state retirement, you're vested 5 years. But to get the full benefit of the retirement, you need a good 20 to 30 years to get a good retirement. By then, like I say, if you don't do a good job, you're gonna be voted out.
Yeah.
That's on you. And I think when you do that, that person knows they're gonna lose that job. They'll do the best they can.
Yeah.
They'll have their employees do the best job that they can, and you won't have that turnover if you showing them they got a retirement, something to work forward, something to look forward to, may even take the office over one day.
That's right.
You know, so, but we gotta work together on it, and I hope that, like I say, if I don't win, again, I would love for my ideas to reach out there, because that's gonna be the fastest dollar to keep us from raising our taxes, and that's what people are sick of.
Yeah.
Taxes, taxes, taxes.
Yeah.
That's why I jumped in there. When I sat down last year and getting ready to do my taxes, I told this story before. For me to live in my house, $6,660.76. Lights, gas, water, property tax, insurance. That's no groceries. That's no battery on the car.
Yeah.
That's not a washing machine. I just bought a water heater for the house, and it was $609. You know the cost, because you building houses.
Yeah.
You know that. And you take somebody who's drawing Social Security and that's it with no retirement, you gotta go back to work.
Oh man.
You gotta go back to work, and we don't need that burden on our people. My mom's 90-year-old, draws $1,300 a month. I'm glad my mom's not 60.
Yeah.
She couldn't live.
Yeah.
She couldn't make it. And we gotta look for the future for our kids.
That's right.
And you know, entertainment, yes, we need that for our young people so bad. There's nothing for these young people to do in this county.
Yeah.
And you know, I was thankful the other night when they saw they opened up the thing at the river park that had music down there.
Yeah.
Something for somebody to go do.
Yeah.
We used to ride motorcycles. We go to Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
On the weekends, man. They would be a gospel band on the square. They would be square dancers. They would be line dancers. There'd be a rock band. All the way down the square, and people bring their lawn chairs and just sit out and just like getting pressure off of them.
Yeah.
Release that pressure.
Oh yeah.
Relax for the weekend.
And that community, yeah.
And you know, we could do that here. Get the food trailers to come down, set up, get them to donate $100 a piece to the band or whoever.
Yeah.
So they can get a little money.
Yeah.
And if I'm not against, if you don't, because if you got little kids, that food trailer is just as high as going to McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
If you can't afford it, bring your kids with a cooler with some snacks.
Yeah.
You know, but let everybody enjoy. But we're gonna have to get together. The fairgrounds out there is a wonderful place. We got. I don't know what the situation is, but instead of saying this is ours and or you can rent it, let the whole county invest money to keep it up and make it better, so all the county can enjoy that pavilion out there. So we can have things like that. We can have little concerts or something, anything to bring money in.
Yeah.
Because entertainment, we got to entertain.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a big thing.
And the ballpark, those people have done a wonderful job putting the new tops over out there where the older people can come and enjoy watching their kids or great grandkids or grandkids. You know, they got a place if it starts raining, they got them under them in the shade. They've done a great job out there. I know people's talked about having travel ball, all of that, and that'd be a great thing to bring money in. Over there at the riding arena, you know, I thought right there would be a great place.
Yeah. We
could put a top over that. A big pole building or close it in. We could have indoor sports in the winter. We could have a rodeo. We could have the tractor pull. They got a pavilion up at Martin, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they do it all in there. So we need something we can do something in year round.
Yeah.
And we have it because it's already set up over there. They got a concession building. They got a bathroom over there. Because you got to have all of that to have it. And you know, David has talked about tourism and bringing them in and all that. We have nothing to tour here right now. I don't mean that ugly. I don't mean it ugly, but we don't have nothing to tour. But we can build this up together.
That's right.
You know, work together and get that going. I mean, we got that big church building over there that he bought, where we got the Office of Aging and all that. I would like to see if I was mayor, you know, when we go to those county board meetings and you got a packed house, nobody can sit down. They got a stage in that building over there.
Yeah.
And I feel that the commissioners ought to have to sit up there and face the community.
Uh-oh.
Not face each other. I mean, I'm touching on cold and probably making somebody mad now, but that's okay. I'll make other people glad, you know. But I think they ought to have to face us and talk into a microphone.
Yeah.
So we can hear them.
Yeah, good point. You
I
know,
mean, because sometimes I go up there, I'm already hard of hearing after driving them old open top tractors and things over the year. But still, I want to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, you know, I could just keep going on and on.
That's right.
We're going to have to wrap it up here.
Okay, and again, Stephen, I thank you for this, and everybody out here. If you don't know me, if you see this and you run into me, holler at me, because I appreciate your vote, and I'm doing it to serve the community. And hey, I'm not here to be a lifelong politician. I want to retire, but I want to retire where my money's not going to tax me to death. I'm not going to have to worry about where my money's going to be when I need a washing machine. I want it to be where I can live comfortable, enjoy my grandson.
That's right.
And I hope he can enjoy Dyer County like I have.
That's right. Well, Mr. Jerry, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great time. Anything else you want to say before we jump off here?
Not other than just, I appreciate your vote.
August 6th.
August the 6th is the election I'm going to be in, running independent. Good luck to all that's running. And I hope that when it's all said and done, we're all good friends. We're all working together.
That's right.
If you go out of office, please don't get mad. Help the person you run that ran and won the position. Don't walk away saying, well, you wanted it. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way for our county to work together.
That's right.
And I think we should all work together. And like I say, if I don't win, I do want my ideas considered. And
I think you got some great ones. Yeah. However it falls out, I really hope that if you don't end up winning or whatever, I hope that somebody brings you in for advice. I think you got some good stuff to offer. So, thanks again, Mr. Jerry.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again sometime.